He thought he was the predator. But I never ran. I let him believe it, fed the illusion one thread at a time. Because when someone thinks they're in control, they don't look down to see where they're stepping. And Jerome never saw the net tightening. Jerome Bryant, 44. Real estate mogul in Rome, Georgia. The kind of man people introduced with a wink and a story. He could sell you a dream home and make you feel lucky to owe him. Tall, tan, with a sharp laugh and perfect shirt sleeves. Women liked him. He liked that they liked him. He liked it a little too much. I knew before anyone said a word. Not because of lipstick stains or late-night phone calls. But because of how he changed his cologne. How he started complimenting me just a little too precisely, like he was practicing sincerity. The way he didn't kiss my shoulder in the morning anymore. My name is Vanessa Bryant. 41. Financial director for a mid-size logistics firm. I graduated top of my class at Spelman. People used to tell me I was born to run a boardroom. Jerome used to say I was the smartest woman he ever met. Then he started forgetting I was smart. I didn't confront him. That would have been too easy. Instead, I listened. I watched. And I began to take notes. 12 years of marriage teaches you more than love ever could. It teaches you patterns. Habits. Which drawers he hides his receipts in. Which passwords he reuses. What nights he's truly working late, and what nights he's just pretending. At first, it was just one woman. Maya. 28. Paralegal. Blonde, petite, all surface sparkle. I found her through a charge on our joint account, one of those high-end bars with velvet menus. Then another at a boutique hotel across town. I never asked questions. Instead, I bought a new notebook. A red one. Inside, I wrote dates, times, names, phrases from overheard calls, transaction codes, bank numbers. It was never rage. It was record keeping. Jerome thought I didn't suspect a thing. He started smiling more at breakfast, like guilt made him generous. Sometimes he bought me flowers, always a little too late, a little too carefully arranged. He didn't realize I stopped loving him years ago. Not because he cheated, but because he underestimated me. I studied him like a spreadsheet. I watched him lie with the ease of muscle memory. And I smiled back, folded his shirts, kissed his cheek. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I was waiting for an opportunity. No one saw the cracks because I didn't show them. To our friends, we were a power couple. Brunch on Sundays, charity galas on Fridays. No one asked if we were happy. They just assumed we were rich enough not to care. But wealth is nothing when it's built on secrets. And I was keeping my own. I made copies of everything, every email, every text, every withdrawal. I hired a forensic accountant quietly, through a friend. I learned the language of financial leverage the same way I learned love, carefully, thoroughly, with the intent to never forget. Jerome, meanwhile, kept walking deeper into the forest, blindfolded by his ego. And I just kept setting the traps. I knew one day he'd step in the wrong place. I just had to be ready when he did. He was obsessed with Maya. I knew it the moment he stopped pretending to hide her. She was young and ambitious in that reckless, hungry way. A paralegal in a mid-sized law firm with enough charm to make him feel dangerous again. When he told me about a last-minute work trip near Atlanta, an area Maya just happened to live in, I didn't flinch. In fact, I encouraged it. "You've been working so hard, babe. Get some air. Clear your head." He kissed my cheek. I didn't move. For 2 years, I documented everything. I accessed his secret accounts using the answers to his own security questions, his mother's maiden name, our first dog, his high school mascot. I listened to voicemails he thought he deleted. I captured screenshots, recorded conversations on a burner phone I kept hidden in my office drawer. I tracked deposits, real estate contracts, off-the-record transfers. He'd grown careless. Maya had made him sloppy. I noted every discrepancy. Every date that didn't match. Every shell corporation he thought no one knew about. And he trusted I was over it? He smiled more. Told his friends we'd turned a corner. Bought me a bracelet I never wore. Said things like, "See? We're stronger than ever." I nodded. I laughed. I let him believe. Behind the scenes, I contacted a forensic accountant. Paid her in cash through a friend of a friend. She helped me understand how to map the money trail without tipping off banks. I learned to speak her language: passive income, capital concealment, audit flags. It became a second job. And I was good at it. Eventually, I had everything. A stack of files that could paint Jerome not just as a cheater but as a man who knowingly committed financial crimes. The kind that wouldn't just get him divorced. The kind that would get him indicted. When I brought the full documentation to a respected attorney, one known for handling high-profile separations, I expected clarity. Results. Justice. What I got was silence. "This is comprehensive," she said, flipping through the pages. "But Georgia's a no-fault state. Cheating won't impact division of assets unless you can prove financial abuse." I blinked. "Isn't lying, hiding money, moving it illegally financial abuse?" She sighed. "In theory. But it's difficult to prove intent without government cooperation. And these transfers, while shady, are technically clean." My heart didn't break. It calcified. All those months, years of careful work. And the system still gave him the benefit of the doubt. I walked out of her office with a jaw tight enough to ache. Not defeated. Not even angry. Just recalibrated. If love wasn't the battlefield, money would be. But not in court. Not through a judge. I needed a new target. The institutions that had protected him. The board members who looked the other way. The foundations he used to launder his reputation. That's where I'd start. I stopped tracking his affairs. I started following his deals. I showed up at events I knew his investors attended. Asked innocent questions. Posed as a potential partner. Collected names, connections, side conversations. If I couldn't win by being the betrayed wife, I'd win by being the woman who knew too much. and eventually someone would pay attention. Because power fears exposure more than it fears love. And I was done loving. It started with a line item on a quarterly report. Buried beneath the usual real estate jargon, I spotted a property transfer that didn't make sense. It wasn't the transaction itself, it was the name. The signature on the document wasn't Jerome's. And it wasn't mine. It belonged to someone dead. A man who'd passed away 4 years earlier. A cousin of Jerome's, conveniently resurrected to finalize a purchase that shifted millions quietly out of state. He'd committed fraud. That was the first thread I pulled. And the whole sweater began to unravel. Jerome had been declaring inflated values on his property holdings, using the surplus equity to secure loans he never intended to repay. He forged names, funneled assets through trusts, and parked funds offshore under aliases that even I had trouble tracing. But I traced them. Because unlike him, I wasn't sloppy. And unlike the system, I wasn't here to bargain. I sent everything anonymously. Flash drives to the IRS. Redacted documents to his firm's board. Internal memos to a journalist I'd once met during a charity dinner. I didn't need credit. I needed impact. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for his life to start collapsing. He came home one night, eyes red, jaw locked. Threw his keys a little too hard on the marble counter. "I've been locked out of my own damn server," he muttered. "Some kind of audit." I nodded sympathetically. "That sounds stressful." The next day, his assistant didn't show up for work. The day after that, one of his biggest clients canceled a deal without warning. And the following week Maya disappeared. Not literally. But she stopped calling. Blocked his number. Wiped her Instagram. Packed up and left the city. I imagine she Googled him. I imagine she didn't like what she found. Jerome never put the pieces together. He thought it was karma, maybe. Or jealous rivals. He suspected sabotage, sure, but from the outside. He never once turned toward me. Because to him, I had always been the quiet one. The woman behind the scenes. Too good. Too boring. Too loyal. So when I filed for divorce, it didn't even register at first. Now, with everything going on, he asked. I shrugged. Timing is everything. I filed using evidence I knew would look clean to the court: joint tax discrepancies, unexplained withdrawals, emails hinting at concealed income. I didn't mention Maya. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't about infidelity anymore. It was about consequence. His firm froze his shares. The IRS launched a formal investigation. A federal subpoena arrived 2 days after I moved into a quiet apartment with neutral walls and no memory of him. I never saw him cry. But I saw something worse. I saw him shrink. I saw the man who once commanded rooms now struggle to command a sentence. And I breathed not with triumph, but relief. Because I didn't destroy him. I simply revealed him. No one knew it was me. Every envelope I'd sent was unsigned. Every tip was rerouted through burner emails, VPNs, and drop boxes. If they suspected anything, they couldn't prove it. Not even Jerome. I watched him fall from a distance. I protected my son from the worst of it. I shielded my name, my career, my future. And I won. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I refused to let him keep everything he built on lies. This was never revenge. It was justice, repackaged in silence. And finally, it was mine. Jerome lives alone now. A one-bedroom rental on the edge of Rome, Georgia. Far from the gated communities and golf courses he once called home. His name isn't in brochures anymore. His smile no longer sells condos. He walks into grocery stores without anyone greeting him. Without anyone looking up. The man who once stood on stages, who gave interviews and cut ribbons, is now a shadow of himself, recognizable only by the silence that follows his name. And that silence, it's louder than applause ever was. I see him sometimes, from a distance. He doesn't know. We don't speak. There's nothing left to say. He wears his defeat like an old suit, still tailored, still expensive, but wrinkled in places he never used to allow. I didn't want him to suffer. Not exactly. I wanted him to witness. To watch what he'd built collapse, not from fire or fury, but from the rot he buried beneath the foundation. And he has. He's watched every piece of his image burn in slow motion. Watched friends drift. Watched lawyers hesitate. Watched investors erase his name from future ventures. He's alive. And that's the point. Meanwhile, I've started something new. A financial literacy workshop. Free for women. Especially those exiting toxic marriages or abusive financial control. I don't tell them my story. I let them tell theirs. I provide spreadsheets, planning tools, legal contacts. I teach them how to read their bank statements like battle maps. How to ask the questions that make men flinch. Sometimes, they ask why I do this. Someone helped me once, I say. It's not a lie. It's just incomplete. I don't need them to know what Jerome did. I need them to know what they can do. The past doesn't visit often. But when it does, it comes quietly. A headline. A whisper. A late-night email from an old friend who now knows the truth but won't say it aloud. I don't mind. My power was never in the telling. It was in the knowing. In a small notebook I keep beside my bed, I write one line every year on the day our divorce was finalized. This year, I wrote. I didn't want him dead. I wanted him conscious. And nothing hurts more than watching yourself lose everything knowing you have no one else to blame. Then I closed the book. And I slept without dreaming. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers. And that's enough. They say everything's bigger in Texas. The houses. The secrets. The betrayals. In Georgia, we uncovered affairs that ruined lives, sparked fires, and rewrote fates. But in Texas, the games are dirtier. The stakes are higher. And the endings, even bloodier. From oil tycoons hiding second families, to housewives with burner phones and 5-bedroom alibis, to pastors, sheriffs, CEOs, and the women who exposed them all. Next up, 10 True Affair Stories from Texas. Hold on. Because in Texas, loyalty is currency. And revenge never rides alone. Coming soon on Infidelity Chronicles.